To catch all the latest episodes, be sure to subscribe and ring that bell.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hag Hi Autistic Guy. This is my first interview in a series where I have a discussion with a prominent individual for various fields while high, i.e. I'm high right now, just a little bit. But the point of these interviews is to really show the viewers how cannabis can affect the mind and the body, again, in terms of just me, as well as discussing various topics that are pertinent to the individual I'm interviewing. So today, for my very first interview, I'm interviewing Eileen Lam of the Autism Cafe. She's an autistic photographer and writer from France, and she's a mother as well. So welcome, Eileen.
Hey, Russell. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So you're a pretty big advocate, and I'm wondering why. What made you advocate?
Well, it all started when my son was diagnosed with autism, and I just wanted to keep my family updated on his progress because they're in France and they don't know about autism. So at first it was very basic, it was just for my family and friends and people in France. And then it kind of took off. And after I learned that I was autistic too, I was diagnosed after my son, which was 5 years ago now. I started advocating for myself too and for adults. And there was so much controversy around what I was saying online, which I didn't know there would be, because to me, I'm like, well, we're on the same team, you know, because it's from people who are autistic too, the bad comments and negativity I get. And it just kind of pushed me to keep advocating, actually, to have my voice, my side of autism and how it affects me and my family heard.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've encountered the same. I really don't adhere to the American, at least, autism groupthink mentality of like autistic pride and all that. And so you said you were diagnosed with after your son, correct?
Yeah. So after my son, my oldest, was diagnosed, my mom said, well, that's not possible. It's an American thing because you were the exact same way as a child and you're not autistic or you don't have autism. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, I mean, he is autistic, like there's no doubt. So maybe it means that I'm on the spectrum too. But, you know, I kind of brushed it off. And then I started researching it and learning more about high functioning autism because my oldest is, you know, level 3 on the severe side. And I was like, oh my God, like that looks like me. But I didn't want to self-diagnose. I just feel like you can do that. So I went through a therapeutic assessment. So it's like hours and hours, almost 20 hours of testing. You know, it's very extended. It's not just like, well, you're autistic, you're not. No, it's a very serious process. And I was open to the idea it was something else, like social anxiety. She even had like schizophrenia on the list. You know, I didn't know for sure I would be diagnosed autistic at the end of it, but I was. And it was great in a way because it explained a lot of my struggles. And yeah, on the other hand, I was like, man, if only I had been diagnosed before, I would have gotten so much more help as a child. So it was a bit frustrating that I slipped through the crack because I was really like a textbook autistic child. And I don't think I would have been missed if I lived in the US. Or maybe as a girl, you don't know, because it's a bit different.
Yeah, it's a good point. And may I ask how old you are?
31.
31. Okay, well, you're my age. I'm 30. I was diagnosed at age 12 in Seattle area, up in Seattle, where I was living. And honestly, things got worse because of my diagnosis. Like I even had an IEP, and the teachers were very old school. They wouldn't adhere to it. I was just treated like I was, you know, I had the diagnosis of autism, but I guess people took my behaviors at face value and thought I was a lazy kid who was using autism as an excuse. So I really received no accommodations, which led me to dropping out of public school. But I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about self-diagnosing? Because you made a comment about it.
Yeah, I don't love it. I mean, I think it's okay to say, I feel I might be on the spectrum, I might be autistic, whatever terminology you use. But to use self-diagnosis as a reason to like speak over diagnosed autistic and to bully parents online, which happens a lot, I think it's not right. So it's okay if you think you might have autism, but don't act like, you know, I think my problem is with people who speak for the entire community. Like they say, we don't like the puzzle piece, we don't like the term person with autism. And as in, there's only one voice in the autism community. And these people, they don't even know for sure they're autistic because they self-diagnosed. And I just feel you can't, like even a doctor cannot diagnose themselves. You know, you're too...
Yeah, exactly. You can't get in, you're subjective. You can't get the objective outlook of like, so yeah, you're right. A doctor cannot diagnose themselves. And yeah, I feel the same frustration. It's, you know, when people say they're basically saying I diagnosed myself with autism. And yeah, like you said, you went through hours on end of testing. I went through, I think, 2 8-hour days when I was 12 to get the clinical trials, and not the clinical trials, but just all these trials with certain nuances of how I behave compared to the vast majority of people. And yeah, I think it really invalidates those who have the diagnosis. And I feel, tell me your thoughts about, again, the autism community. I feel invalidated by the autism community. I honestly, Eileen, I've only met one individual in my entire existence that I have related to who has autism. I just don't relate to other people who have autism. I would love to hear your perspective on that.
No, I feel the same. I mean, I've met more people this year, but before that it was exactly the same for me. I even went back to my psychologist to diagnose me. And I was like, are you sure of your diagnosis? Because I don't belong. Like I see these people online and I feel like I feel even more left out than with neurotypical people. And I was just really confused about why I felt so differently from them. But like we said, I mean, some of them might not even be autistic. And also something that's confusing to me is how a lot of them say that autism is not a disability. And to be diagnosed with autism, it needs to impair your life in a way that is disabling. So if your autism is not a disability to you, then you don't have autism. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Absolutely. And yeah, you bring up another great point of the, you know, there are terms out there, different able, different ability, you know, people don't like the term disability, and I don't get it. I mean, autism for me has been the most devastating thing in my life. It is just, you know, I can't do anything about it. It was a hand I was dealt. It has made me who I am, and I love that. But let's keep it real. It's still very debilitating every single day. You know, yesterday I couldn't even get out of bed. So for people to say it's a different ability, again, I feel insulted by that, honestly. And even like on Instagram, the people will comment, you don't have a disability. Like they're speaking for me and they don't even have autism. How do you deal with that? And how do you not push back? But how do you, again, because it seems like there's a lot of infighting in the autism community. And so if we were to push back on that, it would cause more fighting. How do you get your message across and I guess with being able to have people actually listen? There's not enough listening in our community.
Yeah, I think the people I reach are the ones that are like in the middle trying to learn. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I do what they don't do is that I say, as an autistic person, this is how I feel. Not we. You know, I speak from my perspective instead of speaking for the entire community. And that's all I can do. I can speak for myself and I don't like it, but I can speak for my son who is nonverbal, because that's something they tend to forget too, is that so many people on the spectrum, they don't have the luxury of being able to advocate for themselves on social media. And they say that everyone can communicate, but that's not true. You know, my son can say he wants a cookie with his AAC device, you know, his iPad. But I don't know if he's hurting. I don't know his favorite color. Like, that's all he can tell me, a need or a want. He's not going to tell me, oh, I like the puzzle piece better than the infinity loop. No, you know, that's a privilege to be able to advocate for yourself on social media. So I think it's okay for parents of severely autistic children. And yes, I said the word severely, which I'm not allowed to say according to them, to speak for their children, because they live with them and they know them better than a stranger on the internet who shares a diagnosis with them. You know, that's another crazy thing.
Yeah, parents know their kids better than anybody, right? Obviously, if that kid has the capability to advocate for himself or herself, then that's great. But yeah, in certain situations with severe autism, yeah, there's a lot of parent hate. There is a lot of parent hate out there. And I guess, how do you deal with being on the spectrum and kind of getting caught up in all that, like taking offense to people calling you out on how you describe your own life, combining that with being a mom to a kid on the severe end of the spectrum? That seems like a lot to take in.
Yeah, it sucks. Honestly, it's a hard balance. And at first, you know, when I got those comments, it was really difficult for me. I would get so sad, and I was in a really dark place because it affected me. You know, like, I kept hearing I'm a horrible mother. I mean, things I can't even say, like, because it was so ugly. And then I realized that they repeat the same things to everyone they disagree with, all parents. And I was like, you know what? It's not personal. I mean, it's horrible what they're saying, but they don't hate me any more than they hate this person. I mean, it's not me. They hate everyone that disagree with them. And that really helped me. And so now what I do is just I speak my truth, and I try to make it clear that it's just me, like I said, my voice, and I don't speak for the entire community. And I really wish more people would do that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's not one person who speaks for any community, right? I mean, there are always going to be differences within a community. And as humans, we will never understand what it's like to live anybody's life other than ourselves, right? I mean, if you want to get philosophical about it, it's the problem of qualia. Are we living, is my life at least similar to somebody else's? So we don't even know that. So for people, I just don't get the arrogance of individuals on the spectrum and in the community of speaking for everybody. I'm not going to speak. I can't speak for all guys. I can't speak for all white people. I certainly can't speak for all autistic people.
Exactly.
How do you not take it personally, though? Like, especially in regards to your son. Like, sometimes I assume you just get like totally fed up.
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes I have to just like take a step back from the fun, because it's just so hard not to answer, because I feel like they don't understand what severe autism is like. You know, I'm like, did you self-diagnose yourself after reading things on the internet? And my son is here, like, he's next to me. He's like playing with dirt, not able to answer like questions I'm asking him. You know, he needs help with everything that people take for granted, you know, using the bathroom, like eating, all of that. And they're telling me that it's not a disability. And I feel like it is such a dangerous thing to say, because they speak so loud on social media, and they harass people so hard that it's going to screw people's views of autism. Like, this is not acceptance, this is not awareness, because they are forgetting about some people on the spectrum, a big part of the spectrum, which is those severely autistic kids and adults, because, you know, those kids, they grow up into adults, and sometimes those adults, like, they don't learn to communicate, and they end up like in homes, and it's just sad. So yeah, I do take it personally, because this is my life, and Honestly, I don't know if Charlie, my son's ever going to be able to be an independent adult. It's not looking like it. I mean, he's 8, so we never know, but it's not looking like it. That's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I just applaud your authenticity. Again, I was very frustrated this past April. There was a push to change Autism Awareness Month into Autism Acceptance Month. And I've never liked April anyway. I feel like it's absurd to, have a 1 month campaign and then everybody just pretends like, May comes around and we forget about autism. How do you feel about April, the month in terms of autism? And then B, if you were aware of that move to try to change it to autism acceptance, how did you feel about changing awareness to acceptance?
Yeah, I feel like it's been over a year that they've been trying they're trying to change blue to red, puzzle to infinity loop, and awareness to acceptance. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't mind having a month to speak about it, because if it encourages more people to research autism and learn about it, I think that's great. I mean, we do that with everything.
Yeah.
But it does bother me how people are policing language and colors. And again, it's the same issue. And first of all, you don't get acceptance without awareness, because you need to be aware of the things to be able to accept them. Like, they're not accepting severe autism. No, they're saying you can't say it and everyone is autistic. There's no like severity levels and all of that. So some people will tell me, well, yeah, but sometimes I wake up and I don't talk. I'm like, well, you know what? My son is never waking up and talking, so maybe that happens to you and it's sad, but there are still levels. He's never going to wake up one day and be like, oh, I feel like talking today. And if they forget about that side of the spectrum, then there cannot be acceptance, because they need to accept that it's a disability.
Yeah. And you took the words right out of my mouth. I always say you cannot, it is impossible to accept something you're not fully and totally aware of, right? Otherwise, you're not truly accepting it. You're just, coming to conclusions. And there's so much about, from severe individuals with severe autism, there's so much society probably doesn't know 99.5% of it, right? Just because they might not want to, but B, again, like you said, there's no spotlight on it. There's no spotlight on it. There's a spotlight on kids What are some things from your own life that you feel like isn't talked about enough from the, I don't want to say the higher end, but from your version of autism, what are some things that you would like to have more of a shine a light on, I guess?
Getting out of the house. Honestly, I feel like people don't understand. And again, that's just my experience as an autistic adult, but like going to the grocery store is like absolutely horrible for me. I feel like people just, oh, I'm going to go to the store and grab a gallon of milk or whatever. And to me, that is just like so difficult. Or just like I have to take my kids to swim lessons right now. And just the act of having to like get out of the house and interact with people there, trying to like think about the right thing to say. I mean, it is so exhausting when these things are not natural to you and you have to think about it. I mean, like a 10 minutes run to the store, I just come home and I want to sleep like all day because so much anxiety of like the noise and people around, everything about it. So I think I would love for people to realize that I look normal. I don't really like that word, but whatever. I look normal. I pass, and I know it's a privilege that I'm high functioning. I use that word too because it's true. I am, but it doesn't mean that it's not a disability. It doesn't mean that it doesn't affect me. I also have a hard time maintaining friendships because I don't know. I guess I don't understand fully how that works, even though I think I'm getting better at it. But yeah.
When you find out the secret, tell me.
Struggling too.
It's I mean, you're right. I mean, we can say high functioning. I believe everybody has their own definition of their own high functioning, low functioning days. I think, the invisibility of this autism, for me, is one of the hardest parts of being a part of society. People expecting me to function at a certain level just because I don't look like I have a disability when, I don't just have autism. I have some mental illnesses that coincide with that. And I guess the lack of understanding and the lack of wanting to understand and assuming just because of how I look that I'm going to behave in a certain way, it's, every week I feel like giving up. I obviously don't, but how do you do it with a kid? Eileen, like if I had a kid, I would love to have a kid, but let's be honest, I don't know if I could function well enough to give them the care they need. How do you do it?
Well, that's why you do it with someone. It's easier, so you get breaks.
Right.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. Like I was saying, like the swimming lesson thing that we're doing right now. I just did that, but I'm just like fighting my husband, like to take them to take that from me, just because I feel like for him it's just gonna be like, oh, okay, an hour out of the house, no big deal. But for me, it's just so hard. So I try to relay those things off to him. But no, what's hard about being an autistic mother, and both of my boys are on the spectrum. My youngest was diagnosed in March, and he's like me, high functioning. But it's the noise, because Charlie and Jude too, they're like very loud. And noise is something I have a really hard time with, and I cannot like tell them to shut up, I mean, you can't. First of all, like a lot of Charlie's noise or is steaming. I don't want to like but at the same time, like, how about me, so it's very hard balance sometimes to like which need do we put first, their need of like screaming, being loud, steaming, or my need for quiet time. So yeah, support is important, and I don't have family here, so it's really my husband and me, and not always easy. Yeah.
And so if I can ask just one thing about your husband, does he forget you have autism sometimes? Obviously not forget, but does he forget?
Well, yeah, he forgets in those ways that we were talking about, like, because I try so hard and I push myself, to do these things, and because I know how to pass, but I have to remind him that well, yeah, sure, I can do it. He's gonna tell me, oh, you did it last week. I'm like, yeah, I did it, but like at which price? Like for me, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So I always have to remind him that yeah, I can do it, but it is so much harder for me than it's gonna be for you, and you don't realize how long this can affect me to just do this one thing that you can do without even thinking about it. Like he loves to be at the store. He's gonna spend 2 hours at the grocery store, like
That's a living hell.
neurotypical thing. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I say with my own life, with autism, I can excel at the extraordinary, but struggle with the simple. I mean, the hardest things for me are, again, getting out of bed some days, just getting outside, just maybe one step, right? Maintaining relationships, taking care of myself, showering. That on days when I'm really struggling, those are very difficult. Yet, I can travel around the world and give speeches in front of thousands of people. And so people still don't, again, the invisibility of it. I think, our eyes tend to be our most profound sense perception, our vision. And so I think our brain prioritizes what we see and therefore what we do not see. So when people just always see me, they always have that kind of subconscious expectation of Russell needs to be like this, or he at least should be. I honestly forget I have autism sometimes. And then when I have my huge crack and meltdown, I realized, oh, now I can see it more clearly in hindsight. How do you, are you aware of the kind of the drip, 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 and then the dam breaking? Are you aware of it only when the dam breaks, or are you now getting the hang of getting aware of the drip, drip, drip?
Honestly, I relate so much to what you just said. I forget it sometimes too until it's too late, honestly. I never thought about it that way, but it's exactly it. It's like I forget I have autism sometimes. And then I get so overwhelmed, and I don't have the meltdowns you would think about, you're on the floor, screaming, kicking, but I will get really angry, or completely overwhelmed, feeling I cannot do anything, and I just need to be in a room with nobody and no one talks to me because I can't function. Yeah, actually, I feel like you would ask me a simple question, I wouldn't be able to answer. A shutdown, I guess. Shutdown more than meltdown. Yeah.
Okay. And is that your typical? That's a great thing to bring up. Actually, is that your typical meltdown? It's kind of usually manifesting in anger, or are there some other aspects that can happen?
It's more shutdown, but I've had also feeling really angry, when I'm misunderstood, or I feel like I'm saying something that is so clear to me, and then people don't get it, and that more happens with my husband or friends. And I get so frustrated. And then I have to remember, it's probably not them. If everyone is telling you that the way you're communicating right now doesn't make sense, or and I think it's hard to take the blame and be you know what, this is your autism right now, or this is you. And that makes me angry.
Yeah.
And instead of apologizing or saying, okay, well, maybe I didn't understand that. Maybe that's how neurotypical do it. I'm going to get angry because they didn't understand me. That makes sense.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I often have, my meltdowns have obviously lessened as I've gotten older, just because I'm more familiar with, I guess, the pain that usually in the past would lead to a meltdown. But there are still days where, I will totally collapse into a puddle of tears on the floor. In public, I've had a lot of, prior to COVID, when I travel all the time for speeches, every time my flight would be delayed, I would have a meltdown because, I have to get to my speech on time, right? That's how I make my living. And that, when I'm in public, when I have a meltdown, I immediately go into fight or flight mode. I don't know how many meltdowns or shutdowns you've had in public. Have you had one in front of a lot of people before?
It's only happened to me a couple of times because I don't go out a lot, and it's always at the grocery store. But wow, yeah, I didn't even realize that it's happened to as a meltdown to adults. I mean, you're talking about yourself, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, I think I think what occurred to me, it's funny when I have my total, I usually crack or breakdown or meltdown, whatever you want to call it, maybe every 2 weeks. And it's like a purge. It's again, that drip, 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 and the dam breaks. And when I am at that state, the mental and emotional pain is so profound that it's almost an extremely beautiful moment because there's just an immense trauma or pain going through my body. At the same time, I think it's almost like an ego death. And there have been, thoughts on this from the Zen meditation of during times of severe suffering, we lose our ego. And it is amazing when I have those breakdowns, they can last for like a half hour. And then I'll be totally exhausted, lying on the floor, just like exhausted. And I will see things with total clarity. I will have so many insights flooding into me. It is fascinating. And yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that about me, obviously, but a lot of individuals who are adults, because when it would happen in the airports, I've had many close calls with cops at the airports because, I punch a wall and they see this guy punching a wall in an airport and I don't look like I have autism. So honestly, one of my biggest fears is being shot by cops just because of my invisible disability. And I just don't know how to, I feel like I'm coming to a point where I don't know how to say it any clearer to people, especially some people in my life. Sometimes I just kind of am astounded that they don't know. They're acting like I don't have autism, I guess. They see me, but they don't see what I struggle with. And I don't know how to make that clear to people. Have you stopped trying to get that across to people, or how do you do it?
I almost feel ashamed sometimes to need to ask for accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who when we meet, she always asks me like, where do you want to, we go to like bars, and where do you want to sit? Because I have preferences, I used to not want to see the people. That way it feels less overwhelming. So she would ask me where I want to sit and all of that. And that felt like so amazing to have someone actually but I wouldn't ask people to switch place with me and all of that.
Yeah.
If they ask me, I love it, but I have a really hard time expressing my needs because I don't want to feel needy, and I guess part of me doesn't want to feel different, and I want to fit in, and
that is that's something I struggle with too. Is I guess I don't. I mean, you're right. I mean, I would never ask for an accommodation unless it's absolutely necessary. And I love it when people ask me. At the same time, I think I don't ask for certain accommodations when I do need them because I'm already exhausted from the disability aspect. Why do I have to explain myself? I feel like I almost give up in that situation. Just say, this might not be very pleasant, but, I'm just going to get through it because I don't want to explain why I need another accommodation. Do you ever?
Yeah. And people always tell me like, oh yeah, I feel that too. And oh yeah, I mean, I feel like they're trying to relate, but at the same time, like, no, you don't get it.
Yes.
I mean, maybe you felt something a little bit like that a few times in your life, but it's not something that impacts you like it impacts me. I mean, unless you're autistic too and you don't know it. But,
it's a total invalidation. I feel like, I will, and it occurs mostly, Eileen, and this is the thing that just I can't get over to this day. It occurs mostly in the mental health and autism communities where people are familiar with the subject of autism and mental health, where I will say, yesterday, I'll be blunt, I felt like blowing my brains out. And they said, I'm sorry. I mean, we all have bad days. I'm like, this wasn't a bad day. I wanted my life to end. Like, And again, it's there. We don't talk in America, at least. We make autism very shiny. It's a nice little. We box it into this nice little package, put a nice bow on it, and say it's, you know, this is a good doctor. This is atypical. It's nice and shiny and presentable. We don't talk about the dark stuff, you know. I'm curious to see if you have anything that you, even though you are very authentic on social media, is there still something you struggle to actually put out there just because of maybe the stigma?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things, I mean, I don't talk about just because, yeah, of the stigma. Just this weekend, I posted, it wasn't about me, it was about my son, because he's been having a lot of behaviors. Yes, I know we're not supposed to use that word, behavior, but yeah.
You aren't? You can't use behavior now?
No, you
Okay.
can't. No, yeah, we can between us, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I was just like really at my wits' end, because I was like cleaning up one of his messes, and while I was cleaning up that mess, he would make another one, and that was like huge messes, like things I can talk about, but I'm sure people know, you know, that he would do on the wall, not with crayons, and I had to repaint his entire room. So that was a lot, and then he destroyed my plants outside and all of that, and I was just talking about it because I'm like, you know, this is hard. Like I'm a human being. I'm a mother. It's not his fault. Like I love him. I'm not angry at him. But autism is not all shiny. Like you said, it's not like the good doctor, atypical. It is so. I hate that it's only shown as the high functioning side and as a gift almost. I mean, they show some of the struggles, but it's very quirky and cute. And I'm actually writing a script for TV. It's just a project, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But why not? You know, already wrote a few books, so why not? About severe autism, actually, and high functioning, two characters who are on opposite end of the spectrum, to show those differences and how two people can be on the spectrum and struggle with very different things. Because I think that's so important, and I'm really over the autism is a gift, autism is a superpower, a different ability. And wait, I posted this on social media this weekend, right? And someone told me, and it wasn't even disrespectful. I just said, man, I love Charlie, and it's not his fault. It's just that sometimes autism is hard and there are some struggles. And I just wish we could talk about these struggles more openly without being shamed, was basically the post. And someone commented that I should see a therapist instead of sharing that stuff on Instagram. And I thought that was so condescending because, first of all, I do. But most importantly, if we don't talk about these things, then we end up feeling so alone in our struggles, right? And Instagram, social media, whatever, it helps us connect with people who live the same struggles. Like, I love that we're talking about those like meltdowns and because like, okay, well, I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. It's not even I'm not crazy. It's just I'm not alone. And that's so important.
It is. It is. And, you know, there are people, you know, when I post a very authentic video or just any kind of post, there are people who will either leave a comment or DM me or just unfollow me based on that one post. Because I think, you know, a lot of parents have young kids who follow me. And I think if I post the reality of my adulthood with autism, they get scared that their kid might struggle that much too. And it's, you know, people saying autism is a gift. I mean, everything is a gift. You can make a gift out of everything, right? I mean, we're dealt certain hands in life. I believe I was dealt a very raw hand, but I've made it a gift, but it doesn't come as a gift. And that's like that with anything in life, right? Nothing is purely a gift or the antithesis of a gift. It just is. And it's up to you to how to deal with it. But I wanted to say that when it comes to severe autism, obviously I'm verbal. But honestly, my heart just kind of just breaks for that people like your son, the underrepresentation, the misrepresentation. I was diagnosed with high functioning autism at age 12, but compared to who I am now, I was extremely low functioning. I would not talk by choice. I could talk to my mom, but I would never talk to a stranger. I never made eye contact. I always wore my hood. I dropped out of public school just because I couldn't function in the outside world. And so I know what it's like to be trapped on the inside of your body. And luckily I could talk to my mom and she could talk to me. But for me to think about that, like being like your son, obviously he has his way of communicating with you and vice versa. It's kind of a crime that we're not talking about this. Why not? Why do you think we're not talking about severe autism?
I wish I knew. I guess it doesn't seem as inspirational to the media. I think it's a big thing because you always see, like we talked about, the kid who was nonverbal at age 5 and who graduated college, but it doesn't sound as cool and shiny to say, well, 18-year-old with autism just said, I don't know, T for toast, you know? I mean, that would be great, but it just doesn't sound as amazing. And I think people don't want to hear about that. They like those feel-good stories. And it's sad because the less we talk about it, the less services and resources we're going to be able to get for our kids who need it. I mean, they grow up to be adults with, and the needs just keep changing and changing. I mean, what do you do when they're 18 and they still can tell you like how they're feeling, if they're hurting? What do you do? I don't know.
Yeah, that's it's a good question, and there's so much. Again, I guess, do you go back to France often or no?
No.
Okay. Do you travel internationally at all?
Not anymore. I mean, I used to travel Europe a bit. Not anymore.
Because I felt that America, because I travel a lot internationally, used to before COVID. America is a very cold and ignorant society.
Like France.
Is it? Tell me about it. So I've only been to France once.
It's horrible. That's why I'm not going back, because people are just horrible and so judgmental, and they still think it's the mother's fault. If a child has autism, like just not as a genetic thing, but as a, you're raising the kid wrong. Up until a few years ago, and maybe still now, the kids were put into institutions for autism. No therapy. Therapy is not covered by insurance there. We praise their insurance, French healthcare. ABA is not available. I mean, it's starting to be available in France, but not much, which I know ABA is controversial, but whatever. But people are just mean. Like, it's just like there is no saying hi to someone in the street. There's no smiling. It was just, I think it was really hard on me when I was in France, and I didn't realize like how much, and here I just felt like, even if I'm a little weird or whatever, people are gonna smile. Maybe it's fake, but at the same time, I don't really care, because that makes me feel good to see someone smile at me,
And you're in Austin, right? You're in a good city for I mean, Austin, keep Austin weird, right? So you're in a good city for that. When you were talking about France and people being more blunt and more ignorant and outspoken, I feel like, for me at least, not being a parent, but being an individual, that would almost make it easier for me, I think, because then I would have a reason to fire back at them, or to get mad at them, or to educate them bluntly. But I feel like in America, we are so passive aggressive, especially in the autism community, that if I disagree with somebody, whether they have autism or not, surrounding a subject about autism, they take it very personally. They are very passive aggressive, and especially on social media, all their team members come along and just jump on their bandwagon and start attacking me. I feel like if they were more mean with it, I could say this is not cool. Then I could be more blunt in my response. But I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall when I disagree with others in the autism community.
no one is listening. It's just, like you said, the thing is they always come because they post in their private groups and then everyone go to attack. It's not even productive. If it's one person saying something, it's annoying, but you can deal with it and maybe you can have a conversation. But if it's posted in a group just so other people can then go attack that person, you're not going to get anything productive, and it's bullying. It is. They keep saying that it's not, and that we need to educate people about autism. No, because they're not educating people, first of all, because they're only speaking from their perspective. And second of all, no one's going to listen if they're being insulted. So that's not good. But France is too blunt. Like, I would walk in the street, and one time someone told me, "Hey," I'm like, very shy, and I look up, like, your hat is ugly. Like, okay. So then you just keep walking. Like, oh yeah, it's that type of thing, and then it's like laughing and just, it killed my self-confidence to live in France. And the cat call is also horrible as a girl. Like, there is here. It happened to me in big cities like LA, but I've never been catcalled once in Austin. When even in my small town in France, that would happen to me several times a day.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. And there are, obviously America has a lot going for it, but I feel like, especially in regard to the autism community, we waste, like you said, so much time on stuff that doesn't matter, the way we coin the term autism. Are you an individual with autism, or are you autistic? Is ABA therapy evil, or is it good, or is it both? We waste so much time on this infighting. We're not moving forward at all. And for people, that's why I got fed up with them this movement of changing autism awareness to acceptance, because it's like they think they're moving forward, but we're moving backwards in a sense. And especially on the media, when they highlight inspirational stories, they don't keep it real. They don't keep it real. And I'm wondering, like, if you, I guess if you were given like 30 seconds to talk about autism, anything about it, do you think you'd focus more on the struggle or focus more on the condition as a whole? Because there's a lot of good things that come with it, obviously, but they're paid more attention to, and the struggle is not.
I think both, but I think it's more important for people to know the struggles, because that's how we get help. And I want help for myself, for my sons. So if I had to make a choice between, am I going to talk about the good and the bad, I would talk about the bad just so I can get help.
Yeah. And I agree. It's a pretty easy question, I would think, for a lot of people. But again, let's celebrate autism during Autism Awareness Month. Autistic people make the best employees. They're hard workers. They keep to themselves. They don't fight with others. And there's just all this celebration, and that's fine, but we're getting out of balance here. Let's not turn autism into this pride movement, right? Because there's all these struggles that, it's just not moving forward. And I think we need to, if I don't talk about my struggles, people will accept me for the good, right? Everybody will accept good things. That's just human nature. But to accept things that they're unfamiliar with is the challenge. And the fact that we don't talk about the struggle, and the fact that most people without autism cannot relate or don't even know the struggle, that will never be accepted unless we talk about it. Yet we still catch flack from not the general populace, but others in the autism community when we talk about that struggle. And I just don't get it. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? How would you say, if you say you were given the keys to this whole movement, how do you think you would best move forward?
I think, first of all, people need to take a step back from the harassing, bullying. That would be a great step to moving forward. But really like an easy thing would be to do what I've been talking about, is to not say we, to not speak for an entire community. So they can keep doing what they're doing, but without speaking for the entire autism community, because they end up making people who thought autism was, you know, a disability, because it is, those people feel bad. And like they're I have people message me and like, hey, I saw this from an autistic person, you know, actually autistic, whatever. And then they feel bad, you know, and that's not okay, because they speak from a place that feel like so righteous. Is that the word? That it makes people feel guilty if they feel differently than them, when really their voice is just that one voice. And I think we need to give a voice to parents, first of all, very unpopular opinion, just so they can tell what it's like to raise a child with severe autism, what helps do they need, what services, what we can do to better, because a lot of people have, you know, adults with autism, you know, parents, I mean, they still live with them, care for them. Yeah. What do they need? What do they wish they had when the kids were younger? That's like the type of advocacy I would love to see, something that's concrete that we can actually like work towards and make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. We need more concrete action steps, because just asking for awareness and acceptance, you know, that's relative. Everybody has their own definition, right? And we have about, I guess, 7 minutes left. How does autism and play out in the family dynamics with your husband and your other kids? Because when I was really struggling from probably age of 7 to 21, when I still lived with my parents, I mean, it tore our family apart. I mean, I have a sister too. So the family dynamics were brutal, and it tore our family apart. And to know that I was not the cause, but I guess the reason behind that much family pain, I felt so guilty and ashamed. How does it play out in your family?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think it's so sad. Like, and I don't want my kids to feel like, you know, their fault if our family is suffering, because honestly, we are. Like, it puts a lot of stress on my relationship with my husband, for instance, because there's so much, you know, screaming like from the kids, Charlie especially, and messes, and oftentimes we're like bouncing the ball back and forth on like, hey, you take care of it, man, you take care, and it's just, and then we don't know what to do to help him, and we feel powerless, you know. Sometimes he just starts screaming, and it just puts a toll on a relationship. And then there's Jude, who's my youngest, who has high functioning autism, and he's like so social. That's another thing I wish people knew about autism. Like, he's like the opposite, like hyper social, which means you don't talk to anyone and give them money. That's anyway. Really, they're both extremes, and all he wants to do is play with Charlie, and Charlie doesn't want to play. You know, he wants to be left alone, and so that's really hard on him. The same way I feel like it's hard for Charlie, because Judy's always over him, like, hey, play. So we all have like such different needs. With our autism is so different. And then there's my husband, who is not, well, he's not, he has ADD, but he's not autistic. So it's a lot, and to get everyone needs met when we all have needs, different needs, you know, so it just kind of clashes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're the way you're describing your family, you're like the petri dish for almost the entire spectrum. And it's fascinating that, again, you know, you know, when I used to, hopefully I'll start traveling again soon, but when I used to travel, I would take an Uber to the hotel wherever the conference was, a hotel near where the conference was being held. And the Uber driver would always ask me why I'm in town. And I would always just say I'm a speaker, and they said, "Oh, what do you speak about?" And I would say, "Oh, autism and mental health." And they're like, "Oh, how'd you get into that?" And I'm like, "Here it comes." And so I have autism, and 90% of the time, "Oh, you don't look like you have autism," or "Oh, you must be doing well then." And I think it's the latter one that irritates me even more than the first one, because again, they just see me in that moment, right? If I'm not going to say to somebody who is physically disabled, "Oh, you must be doing well then." I mean, like, what am I even supposed to do with that? Like, is that a compliment? And so even people, I guess they're just when higher functioning, higher functioning individuals with autism speak for the whole community, they shift all the stigma and stereotype onto the people who they are speaking for, like your son and yourself and me. It's almost like we have more stigma than the people who think they're speaking for the whole community, because they are misrepresenting us, and that is causing other people to be miseducated about the totality of autism, and therefore we are less understood. And I think that's my biggest frustration. And again, I guess to wrap up, why keep advocating? I know you said why you started, but it's such a hard battle. It's a lifelong battle, and the movement, the progress is so slow. And then on top of that, your autism, your kid's autism, you're maintaining a relationship with your husband. Where do you find the passion to keep advocating?
Honestly, it's all the messages, the private messages I get that say the same thing. It's, "Oh my God, I was in such a dark place, and then I found your blog." They were in a dark place after reading the Actually Autistic. But they were like, "I was trying to learn about autism from autistic adults, and I just ended up feeling so bad. I've been crying for weeks, and then I found your page, and I don't feel so alone anymore." And honestly, that's why I keep doing it, because there are so many people who need the advocacy I'm doing. But like they say, I'm so afraid of saying anything on social media. They are terrified because the Actually Autistic, I'm calling them that, not all of the Actually Autistic are bad, but they are bullying people into silence. That's what they're doing. And this is so dangerous. So I feel like there needs to be people like us who are like, "Well, you know what? You don't like it, but this is the truth of a lot of people, and our story needs to be heard too." We deserve a voice. Those who don't have a voice of their own deserve our advocacy. So I'm going to keep talking about it. And if you don't like it, well, too bad, because I won't stop. Yeah.
That's perfect. And, everything you just said reminds me of that same thing, to the human connection behind the struggle we may share as humans or individuals on the spectrum. Just from me, knowing I'm not alone is why I advocate, but then hearing from others that they feel like they're not alone because of what we talk about, I think it's mutually beneficial. I think, and that's what, during my darkest days when I was younger, I didn't have anybody to look up to, or there wasn't social media or anything. And so if I can be that person that I always wanted for somebody else, I think that's the most beautiful thing you can do with autism and in life in general, is to be who you are for others, the thing you never had, right? To pay it forward out of your struggle.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be interviewed in this inaugural interview, and let's definitely stay in touch.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for having me. That was such a great conversation.